I find the interesting aspect that the administration's play on this. Are they playing this because we have a page A-1 threat, a threat that should be on CNN, or are they playing this because we've demonized Iran? Iran, we have to rip up the nuclear deal. Iran's a problem in Syria. Iran's a problem backing people who oppose Israel. Is this a real threat, or is this a jacked up threat because the White House wants to expose Iran?
We have some breaking news for you now in the World Lead. We are learning new details about what the Trump administration calls a specific and credible threat from Iran. That threat prompted the National Security Advisor to announce that the Pentagon would speed up the arrival of U.S. warships in the Middle East. Let's go right to CNN's Barbara Starr at the Pentagon. And Barbara, how specific and credible is the Pentagon being here about what the threat exactly is?
Well, they are publicly saying nothing about the threat, Jake, but several U.S. officials tell me that what they are seeing is intelligence that indicates to them Iran is moving short-range ballistic missiles around by sea on boats in the Persian Gulf. So these short-range ballistic missiles could pose a threat to U.S. forces up and down the Gulf and to the entire region. The issue, of course, is if they could manage to launch them off one of these boats or move them to shore locations, but basically to move them around, it might be more difficult for the U.S. to find them and find the launch points. So the U.S. now, the Pentagon is talking internally about sending additional air defense, missile defense capabilities to the region, something like the Patriot missile. But the bottom line is they are hoping that they can deter any intention by Iranian forces. They are hoping that sending the aircraft carrier early, that sending B-52 bombers will be enough of a deterrent message to Iran that they won't even try it. Jake?
All right, Barbara Starr at the Pentagon, thanks so much. I want to bring in Phil Mudd, a former CIA counterterrorism official. And Phil, how big a threat is this? How unusual is this?
I wouldn't look at it at this point as a big threat. It's something, if you're behind the scenes, you got to pay attention to. My question would be obviously where they're going. They going to Yemen? They going to Syria? The bigger question, which Barbara can't answer, I suspect the Pentagon can't answer, and the intel wouldn't tell us, is why are they sending them? I find the interesting aspect that the administration's play on this. Are they playing this because we have a page A-1 threat, a threat that should be on CNN, or are they playing this because we've demonized Iran? Iran, we have to rip up the nuclear deal. Iran's a problem in Syria. Iran's a problem backing people who oppose Israel. Is this a real threat, or is this a jacked up threat because the White House wants to expose Iran?
And the Trump administration responded by moving U.S. warships to deter Iran's threat. That would seem to be a serious move to at least speed up that process.
Yeah, but hold on a second here. We're talking about assuming that there's actually a threat, for example, to U.S. allies or U.S. forces. Maybe they're just delivering missiles to a place where they already have allies and they want to stockpile them. The biggest problem in these cases is assuming you know how the other guy thinks. And I'm going to tell you, once you make that assumption, you're going to be wrong.
And you had the Trump administration move U.S. ships. You have Pompeo on the move because of pressing issues.
I've got to believe that he's moving because the White House is making this threat so prominent. I mean, there are other options on the table. Is there a deal on Venezuela he wants to talk about with the Russians, for example? I don't think so. I think given the fact that the White House and the National Security Advisor in the past couple of days have highlighted this, and the fact that he left Germany, that is, the Secretary of State left Germany so abruptly, he's going to go talk about this in the Middle East somewhere.
And you noted, I mean, tomorrow marks 1 year since President Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. Is it possible that they're just trying to bring attention to Iran as a threat, as you know?
I think so. I mean, I look at every case, and this might be overreaching, but every case I watch the president move, that is, he takes a U-turn on North Korea, takes a U-turn on policy on how we deal with NATO. They're sort of semi-enemies, the way he deals with them in meetings. Same with the G7, takes a U-turn on trade negotiations with Canada and with Mexico. We have the UN saying Iran has complied with a nuclear deal, and all of a sudden, we take a U-turn on Iran as well. I think this is another example of the president saying, I made a policy. The policy was to move away from Iran, and this shows you I was right.
And you have always said that you think the bigger threat is North Korea, and that's something that the administration maybe doesn't want to talk about right now.
Sure, because it's embarrassing. Bigger threat for a couple reasons. Number one, there's a capability reason. They have the capability they've shown to reach U.S. soil with ballistic missiles. But the second issue, the one reason I differentiate them from Iran, like it or not, Iran is a mature leadership. They've been around for a long time. Kim Jong-un, you want to tell me you can understand how he thinks and whether he'd ever pop a ballistic missile? I'd say I don't know. So that combination of capability and intent in North Korea would put them at the top of the list for me.
All right, Phil Mudd, thank you so much. You know all that sea ice that